Is it a bad idea to get an apartment if I could buy a house instead? I am 20 years old, still living with my parents. I am a carpenter and net around $3,500 a month without overtime. I have no debt. Right now I could comfortably drop a $10,000 down payment. Apartments in good areas tend to start at $1,000 a month. Decent smaller houses start around $150,000. A nerd wallet calculator says that a house around this price range would cost around $1,000 a month as well. I already feel overwhelmed between work, lots of overtime, working on projects at my parents' house, online classes, and attempting to have hobbies. Growing up, everyone around me always said that owning is better than renting. I know that ownership makes more financial sense past 5 years. I know I want to own a home eventually, but I don't know if it makes sense for me right now. I like the idea of not having to worry about maintenance, or spending time on lawn care, and having the flexibility to move more easily. I also have the thought that getting an apartment in a nice area will put me around other professional young people and maybe improve my social life. Not sure if that is true or not. Right now I'm thinking about getting a 1-year lease for an apartment to let me get a feel for living on my own. Hopefully then I will have a better idea of my options. I've also considered getting a fixer-upper and working on it myself, but I don't know if setting myself up to work up to 80 hours a week is a good idea. Right now I'm thinking about getting a 1-year lease for an apartment to let me get a feel for living on my own. Hopefully then I will have a better idea of my options. This is the right answer. It sounds like an apartment is good for you. This is one of the reasons apartments can be really nice. You get a place to live on your own and all you have to worry about is paying bills and not paying upkeep on the thing or doing it yourself. Rent for the year, see how things go, see how life goes, and go from there. Buying a $150,000 house with $10,000 down means your principal and interest payment alone is going to be around $1,000. You will also have to pay closing costs $5,000, property tax, PMI, set aside budget for monthly maintenance, and possibly even HOA fees depending on the house. Be careful, I think you are drastically underestimating the costs of home ownership. You already have a lot of replies, but I just want to say that other people could get some wisdom just by reading your question. You talked about living in the house for at least 5 years and how the maintenance in an apartment isn't your problem. The only other thing I would mention is that you may have a significant other, and if you buy a house that will be something to sort out. That said, $150,000 for a home will be a better investment than rent. There are advantages to each, so in my view there is no clear-cut better choice. Good luck. A rent payment is the maximum you will pay per month for housing. A mortgage payment is the minimum you will pay for housing. If you've never lived alone, start with an apartment. I'm curious about where you live, that in a good area you can rent for $1,000 and that a decent house is only $150,000. If homes in your area are only $150,000, then there's no rush. Save up more down payment and take your time. Just want to let you know that you're still young and there's nothing wrong living with your parents. They will get old and be gone soon. Cherish every moment. Plus you can save more money to lease an apartment or buy a house. I'm sick of this Western culture that if you're 18 you have to stop living with your parents. Yes, home buying makes more sense financially, but not until you feel ready. There's nothing wrong with your plan to start small by renting. You can refer to this quote. Rent is most likely the most you are paying for your lodging. Mortgage is the least you are paying for your lodging. That's not verbatim, but the point is there are various fees associated to owning your house. You are already fairly stretched out with $1,000 per month payment, so I don't think you will be financially stable with that amount of mortgage. Well, if you buy a house you have more options. Landlord can kick you out, bank will work with you on payments. You can find roommates and cover your mortgage. Then you can buy up investments. Buy a house. I skipped the apartment life, went straight to buying a house. It's a good feeling when you know you're paying your house off rather than giving it to some lazy landlord. Rent first. In the meantime you will keep saving and have a chance to shop around. $10,000 down on a $150,000 house might be $1,000 a month, but that's not including taxes. Here in NY, taxes on a $150,000 house are about $7,000 a year. Also, I would go from living at home to home owning. Homes require a lot of work and maintenance. Rent first, get an idea what expenses are like living on your own before committing to a home that might be too much for you at the moment. I'd also be aiming to have at least 10 down. Ideally 20. If you're concerned about maintenance upkeep but want to build equity, consider a condo. Seems like the best of both worlds for your situation. Buying a house is not a financial decision, it's a lifestyle choice. Yes, you build equity in a house, but only if you are there for a long time, and assume that the market doesn't tank. It's not a certainty. Renting gives you a lot of options. Honestly, for somebody so young, get an apartment and save money for a future purchase. Keep it in the bank until you know you can support the payments. If that job tanks, then what? I think your gut feeling is right. Get an apartment for a year and take time to consider your options. Are you from the 90s? How are things so cheap where you're living? You're a carpenter, so this isn't news to you, but the upkeep and maintenance of a house needs to be factored in by versus rent. Many things I was told growing up have proven to be wrong. You have to go to college. Renting is throwing money away. These things just are not true. The cynical me says this was all told to me to keep me poor and rich people rich. Don't listen to these people telling you rent. You and I are carpenters. It's easy to build your house over time. Do a little week by week and you'll always have somewhere to come home to. No rent, no mortgage. Now go travel and see what it's like out there. Then come home to your forever place. You'll never regret it. You will regret the thousands you pissed away on rent. If you can afford the $1,000 Mo apartment while continuing to save up for a down payment on a house and at a rate more than housing prices go up, then I think that's fine. Home ownership at 20 could indeed be stressful, and if you just want to hire landscapers and whatnot, then more expensive. If you have only $10,000 for a down payment, I would continue to rent and save. A goal would be to put down 20, and the mortgage payment then totaling less than 25 of your monthly take-home pay. As someone who waited to their mid-30s, don't rush it, but also don't wait. Prices only go up. Think how nice a paid-off house will be in 10-20 years instead of your landlord's paid-off house be. But a 1-year reflection period is not a bad idea. Don't rush, just start looking. Yo, where do you live? That decent apartments are $1,000 a month and houses are going for $150,000. Studios, 1-bedrooms, and basement suites where I live, British Columbia, Canada, go for $1,600 $2,000 month. My mom bought into what was then considered a lower-end townhouse complex for $220,000 in like 2009. Similar unit today is up for sale for $950,000. I can't believe there are places where the coal is so cheap. Crying face, crying face, crying face. David Green answers this question in the latest Bigger Pockets podcast episode. You can watch it on YouTube. Basically, rents can go up every year, but your house payment won't. Eventually, even if you are paying more for the house than rent today, you'll be paying less in the future. And given the long arc of real estate, you'll have lots of equity too, especially with your skills to add value to a property. Is there a reason why you can't buy an apartment? I'm going to say home buying is a possibility, especially if you can get down payment assistance through the local government. As a carpenter, I'd look for a beaten down house and fix it up over time. It's not like you have tons of free time, but you'll blow through things in 3 hours that a contractor will schedule over 2 days for 5 times your cost of materials.